Moedim L'Simcha, Holy Blossom. I'm sending you this message from my parents' backyard in Denver, Colorado, where Sela and I just spent a few days celebrating Seder. I hope that your Seders were filled with music and joy and, most importantly, stories. The power of storytelling is really one of those incredible things about Seder. It's what sets up those generational memories. It's what allows us to think back on our traditions and say, this is what we come back to the table for year after year, whether it's the same old story that everyone has always told and everyone always knows, or something brand new you find in the Haggadah this year, whether it's talking about the world outside your window, whatever it may be. It's the power of a story in community that brings us back to seeing ourselves, as if we ourselves had gone out of Egypt. I was really lucky this year, and besides being with my wonderful family, I also had the opportunity to sit second night Seder next to my childhood Rabbi Raymond Zwerin, who I grew up with and still adore. He's a young 90 years old and has not lost a single thing that makes him one of the most incredible rabbis I've ever met. And he told a story on Seder night that I feel so necessary to share with you, because of course it was a story of his childhood. In the 1940s, he was a young boy, and it was the Seder before his uncle was shipped off to Europe to fight against the Nazis. And so he tells the story that Joe, his uncle, turned to his grandfather, his father, and says, Abba, what should I do? And my rabbi's grandfather took the afikomen and he broke it in half, and he laid it in wax paper, the two halves in two different pieces of wax paper, rolling it up piece by piece until he had two separate little packages. And he said, one of these is for the crossing. When the waves feel like the waves of the sea and you have no idea how you'll possibly make it through those waters, you throw this in. And the second, you'll know when you need it. So sure enough, Joe and the rest of his platoon are crossing the ocean, and they feel like their ship is going to sink. The waves are so high, the waves are so powerful, and he throws that little first package of afikomen dust into the water, and within a minute or two, the waves subside and they make it all the way to Europe, which is a pretty incredible story. And then the second story is a little darker, because Joe was captured and he was sent to one of the prisoner camps. And one of the non-Jewish members of his platoons turned to him and said, Joe, you don't want them to know you're a Jew, so take your mezuzah necklace off and hide it in your boot. And he did that. And on the entrance to the camp, the Nazi commissar told all of the men to strip. And he took all of their boots and he started hitting them on the table. Boom, boom, one after the other, just to make sure that no contraband was coming in. And the first boot hit the table for Joe, and nothing came out. He was like, okay, but it's in the other boot. And I hit the second boot on the table, and nothing came out. And so Joe went in unnoticed into the prisoner camp, and once he got there, he looked inside of his boot, and somehow the mezuzah just got caught on the leather strap on the inside of his boot and never came out, which is itself a pretty incredible story. And so he survived, and he was in that prisoner camp for years, and as April rolled around again, it was time for Passover once again. And the men gathered what meager rations they could, and they gathered what little they could, and they gathered what pieces of the Haggadah they could from memory, and they wrote it down. They prepared to make a Seder, and the man next to Joe said, by God, if only we had the smallest taste of matzah. And wouldn't you know it, Joe reached into his back pocket for that second piece of wax paper that he still had with him, which was pulverized now down to just the microscopic crumbs of the afikomen. And he held it forth, and all the Jewish soldiers in the prisoner camp had a taste of Pesach. And they said that taste of lechem oni, that taste of the bread of affliction, in the midst of their own affliction, that was what gave them the strength to make it through, to be freed, to come home to their people, to come home and be Jews in a free country once again. What a story. And it's all true. You can look up Joe Tzedakah and the Haggadah and the matzah in the Nazi prisoner of war camp, and you'll find more information about that story. What an incredible thing. And so here we are halfway through Pesach, and my blessing for you, my hope for all of us, is that just as it was for our ancestors long ago and for our immediate ancestors just a few generations back, that we will make it through this time of darkness, we will make it through this time of sorrow, and we will find ourselves a free people in a free country once again. Moedim l'simcha. I'll see you soon.